The scent of burning mosquito coils and ribs crackling on the grill floated through the warm evening as the Larson family's yearly summer barbecue kicked off in our Austin suburb. You could hear laughter bouncing off the patio walls, filling the backyard with that familiar, easy noise. Kids sipped around the lawn chairs, weaving between grown-ups, while my uncles sipped their beers and argued over fantasy football picks. I found myself leaning against the old side fence, 32 years old now, but still getting treated like I was the same clueless art major who never quite got her act together. My little sister Madison was right in the middle of it all, glowing in her light blue jumpsuit, telling everyone about her latest win with all the energy in the world, surrounded by relatives who hung on her every word. Madison just wrapped up a dual master's at Kellogg and Caltech, Mom announced, making sure her voice carried so everyone, especially me, could hear. She's been interviewing non-stop with Fortune 500 companies. That girl is going places. Mom beamed, like she'd personally mapped out every step of Madison's life. I took a slow sip of my lemonade, bracing myself for what I knew was coming next. Meanwhile, Mom continued, her voice shifting just a bit, some of us still can't figure out what we want to do. Isn't that right, Susan? I just raised an eyebrow and kept quiet. Across the patio, Dad let out a chuckle as he flipped a steak on the grill. Still messing around with that little business of yours? He called over. What was it again, digital workflow something? He laughed, not in a mean way but with that same old dismissive tone he always used. I traced my thumb along the cold, wet glass, thinking about the boardroom meeting I had lined up for 9:00 a.m. tomorrow, the one where we'd finalize the Stratton and Partners acquisition and roll out our new executive team. The one where I, as founder and CEO of Vertex Dynamics, would be signing off on the final paperwork. Something like that, I said, letting it slide right off my back. Right then, Madison clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. Guess what? I've got a huge interview tomorrow with Vertex Dynamics. They reached out to me directly. It's one of the hottest tech consultancies in the country. The whole backyard erupted with cheers and congratulations. Aunt Denise hurried over with a glass of rose. That's incredible, Madison. I just read an article about their founder. Brilliant woman. Built it all herself. Dad nodded, clearly impressed. Their hiring standards are through the roof. They don't just let anyone in. I had to bite back a laugh, thinking about the HR shortlist waiting in my inbox, including Madison's resume. She had no clue that the company she'd been raving about for weeks was mine, that I'd started Vertex Dynamics in a tiny Boulder apartment 10 years ago, that while she was climbing ladders other people built, I was busy making my own. So, what's the role you're interviewing for? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Her eyes lit up. Senior Strategy Consultant. Can you believe it? That's basically executive level. Oh, I said, hiding a smile behind my glass. I can't wait to see how that turns out. She laughed, then added with a sugary kind of pity, maybe once I'm in, I can put in a good word for you, Susan. I'm sure Vertex Dynamics has a few entry-level admin jobs. Mom nodded approvingly. That's sweet of you, honey. Lord knows your sister could use the help. 32 and still, she waved a hand in my direction, whatever this is. I thought about my penthouse office downtown, up on the 27th floor of Vertex Dynamics' headquarters, with those floor-to-ceiling windows and my own private conference room, about the Forbes article last month that called me one of the most influential women in tech. They'd used my professional name, Jordan, and a shadowy photo to keep me anonymous, but I'd spent the last decade building Vertex Dynamics quietly on purpose. I always knew this day would come. That's thoughtful of you, I replied, my voice calm and maybe a little amused. Good luck tomorrow. Madison gave me a smug little smile, brushing off an invisible speck from her sleeve. Some of us make our own luck, Susan. You should try it sometime. The conversation drifted over to my cousin's new condo, my uncle's pickleball trophy, and more of Madison's academic triumphs. I let their words wash over me like background noise. Tomorrow was going to change everything, and I wanted to remember every second of this last night, this final moment where they all still saw me as the family afterthought. As the sun dipped lower, painting the patio in gold, Madison stood up and tapped her glass. I've got to head out early, she said. I want to be sharp for tomorrow. Vertex Dynamics' CEO is sitting in on the final interviews, she added, sounding proud. Air Larson or something. Nobody even knows who they are. She tossed her hair back, full of confidence. They're going to love me. By this time tomorrow I'll be part of their executive team. Maybe then you'll finally have something to brag about, she said to Mom, giving her a wink. Oh, sweetheart, Mom gushed, dabbing at her eyes for effect. We're already so proud. At least one of our daughters stayed on track. I glanced at my watch. 13 hours and 58 minutes until Madison would walk into that conference room and see me at the head of the table. 13 hours until everything they thought they knew about me would fall apart. I started gathering my things, mumbling something about an early client call. Oh yes, your little remote gig, Mom waved me off. Just don't forget to Venmo your share of your father's birthday present. Madison already covered most of it again. I nodded, not bothering to explain. They didn't need to know that my so-called remote gig had pulled in 8 figures last quarter. Let them keep their assumptions. I slid behind the wheel of the plain gray SUV I use for family stuff, leaving my white Lexus F Sport tucked away in the downtown garage. As I backed out of the driveway, I heard Madison's voice ring out one last time, loud and sure. Tomorrow everything changes. She was right, just not in the way she thought. If you want to see the look on Madison's face when she finds out who's running the interview, make sure you hit subscribe because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. What a waste. Can't even land a real job. I smiled to myself, thinking about the brushed metal nameplate on my desk. Jordan Larson, Chief Executive Officer, Vertex Dynamics. Tomorrow Madison would finally see what a real job looked like and why she'd never have one at my company. By 6:30 a.m. I was already in my corner office, looking out at Red Rock Ridge as the sun painted the skyline gold. The soft hum of the building waking up was oddly soothing. I'd built all of this from scratch and today it was all coming full circle. My slate gray Tom Ford suit felt less like a fashion statement and more like armor. As I went over the day's agenda, my executive assistant, Tasha, knocked and stepped in quietly. Your sister's interview is set for 9 a.m. sharp, she said, handing me a slim folder. She's already in the lobby. Showed up 25 minutes early. Punctual. That's new. I raised an eyebrow. She's also posted about it, future executive at Vertex Dynamics. Her words. Marketing picked it up. She even told the front desk she plans to update the lookup here once she's hired. I had to stifle a laugh. Has she now? I opened the folder. On paper, Madison looked perfect. 2 degrees, glowing recommendations, polished experience. But I knew the truth. The internship's data ranged. The praise from our uncle's law firm. A resume built on connections and appearances. The board's curious why you're handling this one yourself, Tasha said with a knowing smile. Quality control, I answered, standing up. How many interviews before mine? 3, she replied. All briefed. They'll ask the right questions. By 9 a.m. I was behind the one-way glass upstairs, watching Madison stride into the conference suite, Dior suit, Prada heels, acting like she owned the place. She shook hands with the first interviewer, all confidence. But over the next 2 hours I watched her mask slip. Every rehearsed answer started to fall apart. Every shallow credential got picked apart. Every assumed achievement was challenged. By the time she made it to the final interview, her eyes looked tired, her voice was shaky, and her smile had faded. Send her in, I told Tasha. She walked into my office, trying to hide how impressed she was by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the art, the quiet power of the room. My back was to her, chair turned toward the view. Please have a seat, Miss Larson, I said, keeping my voice steady and cool. Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Larson, she said, folding her hands in her lap. I know your time is valuable. I turned my chair slowly, letting the moment hang in the air. Actually, I said, meeting her eyes, it's Miss Larson. Susan Renee Larson. Her face went pale as it hit her. The name on the wall, the initials on the press releases, the woman she'd brushed off for years, Susan. Hey, Madison. I gave her a calm smile. Surprised to see your directionless sister running the company you've been dying to join. She blinked, her carefully put-together act falling apart as her mouth opened, but no words came out. But this can't be right, she stammered. You're just a freelance consultant. That's what Mom always said. Is that so? I nodded toward the wall behind me, lined with plaques, innovation awards, and magazine covers celebrating Vertex Dynamics as one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Southwest. I built this place from the ground up while you and Mom were laughing about my little business. Every time you flashed your MBA, I was closing international deals. Every time Dad called me a phase, I was landing Fortune 100 clients. You tricked us. Her voice shook, rising with disbelief. You lied. No, Madison, I said, keeping my tone even. You all fooled yourselves. You were so busy thinking I was a failure, you never once asked what I was actually building. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen so she could see. That birthday money Mom mentioned? I just sent my share. It's a 6-figure transfer. For me, that's pocket change. Her eyes filled with tears, not sad but angry and embarrassed. So what now? You're going to tell everyone? Humiliate me in front of the family? I shook my head. I don't have to say a word. Your interview today spoke for itself. 3 senior partners, all independent, said no. Too arrogant, too shallow, unprepared, entitled. You set me up. I gave you exactly what you wanted, an interview with the CEO. It's not my fault you didn't come ready. I stood up, smoothing my suit. I suggest you look elsewhere, Madison, and maybe get some real experience, something more than LinkedIn posts and Dad's golf buddies. She got up, a little unsteady, her designer heels suddenly looking awkward, her outfit more like a costume than power. Do Mom and Dad know? They will, I said, heading for the door. I'm sure you'll tell them all about your interview with Jordan Larson. I pressed the intercom. Tasha, please walk Miss Larson out and cancel my dinner plans with the family. Yes, ma'am, Tasha replied. You've got a board meeting that needs your attention. As the door closed behind her, I heard her voice crack in the hallway, followed by muffled sobs, not exactly the triumphant exit she'd pictured. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing with family messages. Mom was first. What kind of cruel joke is this? Madison is devastated. Then Dad, how could you embarrass your sister like that? We raised you better. I looked at the screen, let out a long breath and set my phone face down. They finally knew who I really was. What they didn't realize was that I'd stopped needing their approval a long time ago. I replied to the family group chat with just one message. You raised me to be successful. Congratulations. You did. Now maybe you'll see what real achievement looks like. Then I powered off my phone and turned my focus back to what actually mattered, running a billion-dollar tech company that had changed the industry while they were too busy making jokes at my expense. Let them catch up in their own time. I wasn't about to slow down for their comfort. Over the next few weeks, the change in our family was obvious. The way we talked when we did was different. No more snide comments or passive-aggressive jokes about my little business. Instead, there were awkward silences, forced smiles on Zoom birthdays, and a weird tension that just hung in the air. Madison ended up taking a project coordinator job at a small agency across town. It wasn't the big leap she'd imagined. No fancy title, no corner office, just a regular job earned the regular way. Mom and Dad stopped throwing their usual Sunday barbecues. Maybe they felt embarrassed. Maybe they just didn't know how to handle a world where the daughter they'd always underestimated now ran the company they used to laugh about. But the moment that really sealed it came 3 months later. Forbes ran a cover story called The Silent Success: How One Woman Built a Billion-Dollar Company While Her Family Thought She Was Failing. My face was right there on the cover, full collar, sharp suit, Vertex Dynamics' skyline behind me. No shadows, no hiding, just me. I had 10 copies shipped overnight to each of my family members' homes. No note, no message, just the magazine, just the truth. The article laid out my journey, from picking up odd freelance gigs in a cramped Boulder apartment to building one of the top AI-integrated systems companies in the country. It talked about the turning points, the sacrifices, the relentless drive they never saw and never asked about. At the end, the last line read, "Sometimes success doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just signs the checks." And honestly, that was enough for me. I didn't need their praise or their recognition anymore. I'd built something real, something lasting, something they could never take away. Let them tell their friends. Let them rewrite the story to make themselves look better. Let them pretend they always knew. Meanwhile, I'd be at Vertex Dynamics, getting ready for our European expansion, closing new enterprise deals, and mentoring the next wave of women in tech. Success had already spoken for itself and for me. And I had no plans to turn down the volume. If you've ever felt underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you, I get it. I spent years being told I was too vague, too artsy, too lost. While my sister soaked up the praise, I was the family's running joke. But I didn't fight back with arguments or by begging for approval. I built something real, something they couldn't ignore even if they tried. And now, after all the silence, I'm finally telling my story, not out of spite, but to remind you, your worth isn't measured by how others see you. It's about how you see yourself. So if you've ever felt small at a family dinner, if you've hidden your wins just to keep the peace, or if you're still building in the shadows, drop a comment below and share your story. Tell me what you're working on, what you've overcome, or who you're proving wrong. Not for revenge, but for your own peace of mind. And if you felt even a spark of validation watching me go from unemployable to CEO, hit that subscribe button. Not just for more stories like this, but to join a community that sees through the noise and recognizes quiet strength for what it really is. Resilience. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. We'll keep building. Because sometimes the best way to win is in silence until your name is on the building. Before you go, how's your day going really? I want to hear about it. Did you have a small win you're proud of, or maybe you're pushing through something tough? Either way, drop it in the comments. I read every single one.